Are you ready to learn how to design pins that will convert to podcast followers? This is an episode you are not going to want to miss. If you've been following along our series, you will know exactly how to optimize your profile, leverage keywords, and create content for longevity on Pinterest. So, what are the top tips that podcasters must know when it comes to Pinterest? And designing pin templates. Is there a perfect combination of types of pins that you should use? And what kind of strategy should you be looking at when you're creating your content? Samantha and I answer all of these questions on this episode today, and I know you're going to gain a lot from this conversation. Before we dive in, be sure to hit that subscribe button where you're listening, leave us a comment or a review. You can watch the full interview on YouTube, and you can also join me on Patreon for more behind the scenes and more content, Q&As, and access to all the episodes in advance. Let me tell you a little bit about Sam before we get into it. Samantha Roller is a Pinterest marketing expert and online marketing VA. Since 2015, she's worked her way up from basic admin and social media management roles for brick and mortars to working with 6+ figure business owners to grow and streamline their funnels. Samantha believes that anyone can utilize the power of Pinterest marketing, email funnels, and a simple opt-in to attract and convert ideal customers and clients, promote podcasts and YouTube channels, and ultimately build a consistent stream of new audience members to nurture. Let's get into today's conversation. Welcome to the last episode of our 4-part Pinterest series. Sam, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to dive into this conversation because I feel like it's really going to tie in all of the different pieces that we've spoken about over the last few episodes and how people can really start, how podcasters can really start tailoring their content, creating it on Pinterest, and creating a whole new stream of potential income, but definitely leads to their show. And so I think this whole series has been super educational. So thank you again.
Oh yeah, I've loved it.
Me too. So in this episode, we are going to tie it all together, and we're first going to talk about, we're going to talk about designing pins that actually convert to downloads, because ultimately that's what people want, right? You put your show out there, you put your content out there, and you're creating, and so you really want to be designing those pins and having them convert. So what would be some of the top things that podcasters need to know about designing pin templates? We talked about the types in our last episode, but what do they know what do they need to know when it comes to designing them?
Yeah. So first of all, your format really matters. The pin size is very specific. Outside of product pins, you want to have that 2-to-3 ratio. The standard pin size that Pinterest recommends is 735 pixels by 1102 pixels. So 1,102 pixels. That's very specific, but that is the number they give us. You can make it a little bit longer. The main point is that it is a long pin.
Okay.
This way it takes up more room on the screen. This is just more effective. Pinterest has done experiments on pin sizes since they first started, and this has always been more effective, and it's always what their pinners are more attracted to. So it's really important to keep your pin size in check. So if you have a Canva account, which again, I highly recommend Canva for quickly and easily designing pin graphics, you do not have to have a pro account. They have pin templates that you can use. Now, a word of caution, it is okay to have pretty pins that have, the really nice podcast stuff. If you put in podcast under templates for pin templates in Canva, you'll see some really nice graphics, and they're really nice, and you can use them for brand related aesthetics. So you're going to use your colors, your logos, specific fonts, and you might want it to look really pretty, and that's fine and that's good. However, do not forget that we are trying to get these pins to stand out. So make sure when you're doing your keyword research and you're looking at the different pins related to your niche, related to podcasting, podcast specific pins that actually promote podcast episodes, look at which ones are actually more effective. And most of the time you'll find that the ones with big, bold words tend to be more effective, and things that just, when the images pop out on the screen, they tend to be more effective. On top of that, like we had talked about before, using keywords in that pin design is really, really important. How am I going to answer a question, get their attention? whatever it may be, the moment they look at this pin, why are they going to choose my pin over the pin surrounding my pin? And really think about how you can garner people's attention.
Mm.
And again, we're going to go back to creating a blog post or something else where you can pull different headlines and different things that you can actually write on the graphic, the text overlay on the static pin. How do you make it stand out? What questions are going to be answered? Different topics are in each podcast episode most of the time. Even if it's something smaller, you can normally pull it out. Or if someone asks a question later after a podcast episode has come out and they're like, okay, well, what about this? Or they have a specific question about something that was answered in the podcast episode, you can then pull that and use it as text overlay on your pin graphic or as your pin title so that you can even engage even more people. The biggest thing above all with designing your pins is think about what other people want to click on, not what
Mm.
you find pretty.
I think that can be a challenge though for people. Like, I know that for myself. I know what I like. And, of
Mm-hmm.
course, to some degree, my ideal client and ideal audience would probably like the same thing. But do you have any tips for people to sort of figure out what it is that their audience would want to click on instead of versus just what they would want to create?
Yeah, so there are really direct and non-direct ways of figuring out how your audience is going to engage with pins or what pins they will engage with. So obviously a part of this is, again, what we talked about before, which you're going to be doing some experimenting when you're getting started. Create different types of graphics, play around with what actually works on Pinterest, what gets more engagement.
Mm.
Maybe someone clicks on a pin and goes to your website, but they don't save it. Maybe someone saves a pin. A lot of people save a pin, but they don't necessarily click on it.
Right.
Maybe people are engaging with this pin. Like there's tons of impressions. People are stopping and looking at this pin, but they're not doing anything else with it.
Mm.
Just remember that every number, it represents something a little bit different.
Right.
Impressions are great, but they don't tell us much about what your audience actually is interested in doing with that pin. If they're not actually engaging with it, there's no purpose.
Right.
If someone saves a pin, that means that they want to save it for later. This is an interesting topic, but not something that I'm searching for right this second. It's something that I have interest in. I'm going to try to remember to go look at it later. Now, for the note, Pinterest loves saves. When your pin is saved, Pinterest loves that. They're like, okay, cool. They actually, this is what Pinterest is made for. But if someone actually is clicking on your pin, even if they're not doing anything else with that pin, but you have a lot of people clicking on it, this means that people are looking at that pin and going, I need to know what the information behind this pin is right now. I want to see what this is right now.
Yeah.
So this is a way that you can sort of interpret the data behind if your pins are effective or not. And this is the indirect, organic, slow-moving way to measure which pins and which types of pins are going to be more effective for your audience. Now, the other way is to utilize your other social platforms, your email list, and ask your audience directly. What do they like? What do they not? Are they even on Pinterest? Would they be interested in, hey, come engage with my Pinterest account. Hey, or save this pin for later, or go into your Instagram story and, hey, I'm designing some pins from a Pinterest account. Which one do you like more?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with asking your audience directly what they like and what they don't like. And it's honestly a missed opportunity. You have these people in your audience. If you do, ask them what they like. Ask them, okay, are you even on Pinterest? Are you going to engage with this? And the funny thing is, across your social media accounts and your email list and wherever your audience is, they're all going to have different answers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if you're tying all of this together and you want to create, an ideal strategy, if you will, what would you recommend for a podcaster who's just beginning? How many different types of pins? Is there like a perfect package that you could wrap up in a bow? And if you were to hand it over to a podcaster, be like, this is exactly what you could start with, and then tweak, and then making sure you're looking at your data and your analytics from there.
Yeah, so I wish I could say that everything was perfect and wrapped up in a bow. I would say in this state of Pinterest, because, every platform changes right now, focus on 2 or 3 idea pins per week. posting 2 or 3 idea pins per week. You cannot schedule them ahead of time. Do some research and really try to create some really engaging idea pins to get people really noticing your brand, increasing that brand awareness, doing some educating on who you are and how you serve them. Use idea pins for that purpose, specifically starting out. Use your static pins to, let's say, 2 or 3 a day max. You do not need more than that. Even one a day is fine, honestly. Just to get you started and just to get the ball rolling, just to get Pinterest used to your content. You want Pinterest to, first of all, you can't pin too much anyway at the outright, because Pinterest will tell you can't pin anymore. So you need to
Oh,
calm down.
wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a newer thing, but it's a way for them to prevent spam. People will create Pinterest accounts and and especially Pinterest business accounts, and people will just spam these accounts right out of the gate. Pinterest will actually tell you cannot pin anymore today.
Wow.
They'll make you wait 24 hours to pin again. And so it's really important to just take it slow. Pinterest isn't interested in seeing all of your content at once. They want to learn about you. The algorithm is smart. Let it work for you. Go slow. Start with different, let's say you already have your podcast. What are your most popular episodes? Start pinning different versions of pins for those episodes and seeing which ones get engagement.
Okay.
Start working on the SEO on the back end of your website. Make sure everything's in place. I would love to say, if you pin all this stuff, in 3 months, you'll have all of these podcast, listeners and subscribers. That's just not how it works. Consistency matters, but the back end matters too, which is kind of the premise behind my Pinterest funnel workbook and why I made that, because it's so important to me. And it's something that everyone needs to know, is that Pinterest is not a face value platform. There is stuff that's going on behind the scenes, or that should be going on behind the scenes of your website, that makes it more effective. If you have an opt-in, and this is for anybody, if you have an opt-in on Pinterest and you have a pin for it and people are opting in, but you don't have any email set up, or they're not getting any emails, or you're not engaging with them, or there's no real purpose behind where they're going to go to next, then this is for nothing. So if you have a podcast, let's say you don't have another business, you don't even have a website, you just have a podcast, you can use an email marketing platform. Just get an email marketing platform. Use Flowdesk, something simple. Get a landing page to help people opt in, like you had talked about in the last episode, even if it's about like a guide for your top episodes.
Yeah.
Something that people can really engage with you, because if you build up that email list, you then have very specific people who are interested in your content that you can send new episodes to, you can talk about your affiliates with, and you increase your chance of not just getting subscribers, but making money.
Exactly. I love that.
So utilize, what you have.
I think that's so key, because I think a lot of the times when you look at a search engine like Pinterest, it can feel very overwhelming, because it's really like, where do I begin, right? Where do I even start with creating content? But as we've explored through this entire series, it's very clear and it's very apparent that you already have more than enough content to get started and get created and to get things created. It's more so about thinking about what to post strategically and when, and the different types of pins that you can mix in together, and creating that small, content calendar for yourself with a mix of idea pins, with some static ones in there, with a video post in there as well, and the carousels and all of those. If you want to break down to those, we talked about them in the last episode. But I think it's really important that, like you said, there really is no one size fits all. There's nothing that's going to be tied up in a perfect bow, let's be honest. But you can get started and get creating with what you already have, and then you can start to expand from there. And then, like we've mentioned in the last episodes, this is me just recapping in my own mind, taking those different pins and redirecting them either to your podcast specifically, or directing them to your website on its own. And so either or, it doesn't really matter, but having a mix and having a combination of them is the key. And then testing and then looking at the analytics, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do feel like this is a piece that is missed on every platform almost, especially if you're just not used to it. But there is an analytical part of being on a social platform or doing any kind of marketing. You need to know your audience. You need to read what they're engaging with and what's important to them. And we need to let go of this idea of vanity metrics. Even now, people ask me, well, how do I get more followers on Pinterest? I'm like, I don't care if you get more followers on Pinterest. I couldn't care less if you have followers on Pinterest. If you want to reach a certain number of followers to be part of the creator hub and earn money through idea pins, then that's important. But outside of that, just generally speaking, when you're utilizing the platform to get subscribers to your podcast, know your audience, know who you're talking to, and just engage with them. You know what they like, you know what they don't like, especially if you've had your podcast around for a little while. You should be pretty well versed in what they do and don't like. Just try your best to not overthink what you're putting out there on Pinterest so much in terms of making it perfect. This isn't Instagram. This isn't Facebook. You're not competing with
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah.
You are simply utilizing the tools, the keywords Pinterest is providing you to get in front of people who are literally searching for those topics. It's less about you trying to find people and just giving them ways to find you.
Mm-hmm. That is so good. I love this so much. So, Sam, you have your free workbook, which we've linked in the show notes here. If someone wants to work with you directly and just have your guidance and your help, with the whole side of their Pinterest, what would be, oh my God, let me just restart all of that. Are you okay if I ask this question?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. So, Sam, if someone wants to take it a step further with you, aside from just the free download that's in the show notes, how could they do so? And what would be their next steps? What would you recommend?
So you can actually contact me at samanthalind.co, and I have a couple of different options available. I still have some Pinterest management spots open. It's not something that I do as much anymore. I definitely love my consultation calls. So if you are not necessarily in the market for or have the budget for someone to actually manage your Pinterest account for you, which is completely understandable, even having a one-on-one consult with someone like me can give you a really interesting perspective on your content specifically. So every niche is different. I can actually guide you through what types of keywords to use specifically for your type of podcast and help you optimize your profile and create a pinning strategy that will work for you long term.
I love that. Thank you so much for doing this series with me. I really appreciate it. And it's been so amazing having you on the podcast.
Yeah, I've absolutely loved it. This has been great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next series. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation today. I am so grateful that you've spent this time with us to learn about how to leverage Pinterest for your business, for your marketing, and for your podcast growth. If you would be so kind as to leave a rating and review of the show wherever you're listening, I would be most grateful. You can also watch the whole entire episode on YouTube so you can see us in real time. You can give me a follow or subscribe over there too. I wouldn't be mad at that. You can connect with Sam, grab all of her freebies and her downloads. The links are in the show notes. But let me tell you here, her website is samanthalind.co. Her Instagram is at samanthalyn_co. Her Pinterest link is in the show notes, and you can also get your free Pinterest workbook in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. Again, I cannot wait to see you on the next one.